Hello everybody, this is Royal, another stream. Without like really getting too deep into it, I decided that I would just do like a Utopia slash Onomat stream. One, because I've played the deck before, but not in the pure sense. Uh, if you've ever watched any of my Master Duel videos, I've played it using like a Luna-like core, just because previous to the support that Utopia ended up getting, the actual cards were really bad. And if you'll see in my presentation, I have like literally 2 slides worth of reasons why the deck was bad. And secondly, there's not really that much good content on the deck on YouTube. And honestly, not really that many good resources on like Discord, for like server, forums, etc., etc. So I thought that I would ask some friends that I know who play Utopia to sort of like teach me the ropes of how to play the deck, and then sort of trying to find a way to condense that into a just pretty simple like presentation, essentially. There might be things that I miss because obviously it is not my like main deck, but I hope to do like a pretty good job of like representing the deck and how it will play in TCG currently, and if you choose to play it in Master Duel. But without further ado, if you can also see my presentation, please let me know. Otherwise, let me know now before I start this. Can you see my lovely screen? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, I got no answers, so I'm gonna just go into it then. Let us start from the beginning. Ta-da! The stream. All right. Background on Utopia slash Onomat. Utopia is an Xyz-based archetype focusing on light warrior monsters that serve as the deck's powerful like boss monsters, end board pieces, that have like, for the most part, like varied forms of disruption, or they can create varied forms of disruption, which you'll see when you see the deck list and the combos. Utopia, which is the monster right here, number 39, was originally a singular monster before being expanded upon and fleshed into its own titular archetype, piloted by Yuma Tsukumo, who is the primary protagonist for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal anime and manga. That's Yuma, that's Astral. The Onomats were our primary level 4 main deck monsters that can swarm the field, that served as the bridge to allow you to access all the different Utopia monsters in the extra deck, which serve as the deck's win con. The Onomats themselves don't really do anything on their own. They're not like, I don't know, they're not just, yeah, they just get you to your rank 4s essentially. And very similarly to like a lot of like Yu-Gi-Oh! Protag decks, despite being the poster child for like the titular hero of the respective Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, the deck has unfortunately suffered from suboptimal waves of support, to say the least, that have led it to see no competitive relevance and topped in the entirety of its lifespan. I think the only top it has ever seen, at least to my knowledge, was a month after its support's release, and that was in the OCG. I think I could probably pull that up, but all right. So, slide number 1 of why this deck sucked or sucks. Um, the deck was overly reliant on the Onomats to really get into his plays, as it was basically the first archetype that was released in the game for the Xyz summoning mechanic as a whole. It's very similar to, I guess, like X Saber is like a good one, or maybe like Hero, where it's like the cards have very gimmicky or very niche uses, um, and they're not just, they were just very terribly designed for introducing people into the archetype, and they really served more as just like anime catering per se. The deck also was unfortunately tied to one of its best monsters in terms of like a design aspect, that being numbers S0, Utopic Zexal. If you're not familiar with the card, I can show you afterwards, but essentially it's a turn skip. It's basically King Calamity, it's Crew King of all calamities. It was very easy to access through Numeron, because you could just do like the Numeron network, summon the 4 monsters, and it needs 3, if I remember correctly. It needs 3 names to access Utopic Zexal, and basically you just lose from there, because that's all turn skips. Zexal's ban would essentially make it at least a bit easier for them to start designing better cards for the archetype. There is the card known as Utopic Onomat, or Utopic Onomatopoeia. It is another way for, it was another card that was slowly introduced, that allowed you to assist with accessing like all of your Onomat monsters and bringing them onto the field. But the big thing is that a lot of the Onomat power spells, which are essentially Pickup and Pyra, really, especially Pyra, make you go neg in card advantage. So if you don't resolve it, it's pretty bad. A lot of the deck's early cards also focused on like battle phase effects, battle phase gimmicks, which is incredibly outdated, or as you can imagine, it's pretty bad in like a modern Yu-Gi-Oh sense. And then other decks really just took advantage of Utopia's like archetypal tools better without needing to use the engine itself. Again, S0, Draco Future being another one. And then slide 2. Previously to its support, the deck basically ran a lot of engine requirements that were not ideal to draw, like rank up magics, Zexal weapons, double or nothing was like very tied to this archetype. If you drew it, it was basically game over. And then numbers protection was like the main counter trap you would run, and it was much harder to search because it had to be accessed through Astrotopia, which in turn, because you had to run all these engine requirements, it's then suffered in the ability to run a lot of non-engine, meaning if it went second, it would more likely than not lose, because the deck already had very weak pushes through disruption, or they would, again, like if they stopped you or made you make a minimalish board, it was just like very easy to push through. And then decks of the time were just pretty good at making like equally oppressive end boards with less effort, less difficulty, or equally as strong, if not stronger, which just made the deck like generally less attractive. The only people that I've ever known personally that play this deck are just people who are fans of the archetype, but in a competitive sense, it definitely was never like that good. Which then leads us to Duelist Advance. I've talked about Duelist Advance before with the Lunalight archetype, but the poster child of this core set was Utopia, as you can tell by this big Giga Chad right here. It gave the archetype essentially 9 new cards that would assist bringing it to like sort of modern standards, mainly through retraining all of the older cards and making them much quality starters, while also allowing the older cards to sort of see more advantage or be more useful or or being less reliant on those resolving. And as I will show later, the new support, when it was announced / released, a lot of people were getting ready to essentially slot it into Ryzeal because it's another Xyz based archetype, specifically a rank 4 Xyz based archetype. And it would assist Ryzeal in any sense that if like Fiendsmith ever got hit, if Mitsu got hit, which it did indirectly through the ban of King of the Feral Imps. So Onomat would essentially be a placeholder or an alternative archetype that they could use as an engine to go and still do what it does. And since this is also now covering, since we're in October, we can also talk about Doom of Dimensions, because it also introduced a sort of 10th card, which is this guy right here, Onomat. As you'll see in the combos, this card is so good for the archetype. But the main things you really need to know is that it's an extender and it is recursion, all in one. I would probably go to say that behind Dododo Warrior, this is the second best card that the support got. But it also did indirectly buff Onomat Ryzeal as well, because this card, for its recursion effect, banished itself to do so, which allowed them to get access to Arch Nemesis Protos through the lock, which I will show with my the combo that I set up. And before we go into the deck list, some variants and engines for Utopia and Onomat. Obviously, again, Ryzeal is like the big one. It's like a complementary for a rank 4 deck that ends on a strong boss monster in Detonator. You can bridge into it with the Onomat cards using Duo Drive, of course. It gave you access to stuff like Infernal Flame Banshee, Evil Swarm, or Ouroboros before its ban. And Onomat, again, was the piece that allowed them to access Protos through Banshee. And if you didn't go that route, or even without that, Onomat allows you to recover the detonator in the case that they remove it by some means, or you don't have access to Eclipse Twins. Basically, having the one of detonator isn't as bad anymore, just because there's multiple ways of recovering it, even if you don't get access to cross. A big one has always been Math Mech. You just add like a small like circular diameter like Sigma package, Allen Bershin, and Laplacian, and the Superfactorial. This was more so done in older versions of the deck, but as you'll see, or as you'll see later, it could be an option just for extra interruptions. Prior to the banning of King of the Feral Imps, Utopia could play around its Xyz lock through the Mitsurugi engine, you know, give you access to Murakumo, prayers, great purification, etc., etc. It does add bricks to the Utopia deck, which it can afford because generally Utopia is actually very consistent, which you'll see through the deck list. Like, and you can do the tight 40, but with like a Mitsurugi or Mathmech package, I'd probably go 45-50. And then there's the Zexal weapons. They're not really as much of a variant. They're more like an engine per se, but they served as equips for the Utopia monsters that you typically would equip to Leo Ray. That gave you effects such as monster negates, spell trap negate. It should have. I think it's just a trap negate actually. Targeting protection, etc. Give you like OTK push power as well. But they're massive bricks when drawn because you can only equip them from your hand or your field if your life points is 2,000 points or higher, lower than your opponents. So basically, you need to be 6,000 or less, which isn't reliable to get to when going first because Utopia doesn't really have too many cards that ask you to pay life points for their use. But with that said, do you have any questions before I show the actual deck list? And yes, this absolutely cancer card. That is, yeah, I mean, it doesn't, I don't think it matters too much which card. I think that's just a very steep cost for a card. It's a steep cost for a deck that doesn't ever really pay those costs, if you know what I mean. Like, you're not paying life points in any of your combos to make them functional or to make them work. And now I will show you my deck list and go over sort of the cards. Bro, we are not running that card. Share my screen and pull up. Can you see my Edo Pro screen? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, yay. Okay, cool. All right. So, let's get into it. All right, Dododo Warrior. I'm gonna try and summarize these pretty succinctly. This is post dude, so I do have the Onomat Kage. But let's go into it. Dododo Warrior is basically you send one Dododo monster from your deck to your graveyard. You special summon it from your hand. Its level becomes 4, and its attack becomes 1800. Also, it locks you into Xyz monsters. If this card is attached from an Xyz monster, activate that monster's effect. You can add one Zubababa monster from your deck to your hand. So, a lot of the new retrains have this effect where if you detach from an Xyz monster to activate a monster's effect, you can add a specific monster of that type. What that essentially means is it isn't in the same way like if you like Shadow Mist, for example. Shadow Mist needs to go to the graveyard to activate the effect. This card doesn't care where it is sent. It just needs to be detached. So if you banish it, if it gets banished for some reason, like if they activate Shifter, for example, it doesn't matter. The effect will still resolve because it just cares about the fact that you're detaching, which makes it really good. And again, this is how you play through Shifter, or this is why the deck is much more competitive compared to some of its counterparts in Genesis format, because it doesn't care about Shifter or Shifter-like effects in that regard. But the easiest comparison for this card is Circular, Mathmech Circular. Um, I don't think I need to explain why Mathmech Circular is a good card. But yeah, I think this works super well. And in tandem with the next card, which is the only other three of in terms of monsters that you run, which is Go Goblinberg. Go Goblinberg essentially when normal summoned only, you can special summon one non-warrior Go monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And brother, I did not prepare anything for Karibo, so we not thinking about that right now. I can read Karibo cards later. Brother, you're shit. Anyway, so essentially, the Dodo Warrior is your primary special summon, and Go Goblinberg is your primary normal summon. I can read these cards afterwards. Let me explain. And if you detach Goblinberg off of an effect, you get to add one Dodo monster from your deck to your hand. Following that up is, I'm going to kind of put these two together. Utopia, Utopic Onomatopoeia. Essentially, during your main phase, you can special summon up to each of one Zubababa, Gagaga, Gogogo, and or Dodo Warrior from your hand in defense position. Also locks you. This card is a conditional extender, and it's searchable by any of these effects because it is always treated as any of the Onomatopoeia cards. You never would want to run more than one of this. It is a terrible starter. You would never want to normal summon it. You would want to special summon it off of the effect of something like the Gambara Knight, which we'll go over in a sec. Onomat, which I sort of already explained. If you control an Onomatopoeia monster, and this card is in your hand or your graveyard, you can special summon it off, but it banishes itself when it leaves the field. You can also, if you banish it from your graveyard, return up to 2 of these monsters from your graveyard to your extra deck. You can use each effect once per turn, so you can use it both as the extender and as the recovery if you absolutely need to, but usually the recovery effect is more so for turn 3 plays or the crackback. I really like this much more than the next card I'm going to talk about, just because it has much more functions than the other card. The only drawback is that it's susceptible to Bestials if your opponent is running that for whatever reason. Then goes Dodo Dwarf, Go Glove. Don't come at me with these names. Basically, this is what you're typically going to send off of Dodo Warrior. The fact that you have Onomat, you can also send Onomat as well, or Dodo Warrior can also send a copy of itself, or it can send Utopic Onomatopoeia, but generally you send the glove. The glove is an earth, which allows it to be it's not susceptible to Bestials at all, so I usually send the glove to play around that, especially in a blind setting. But also during your main phase, while the card is on the field, you can special summon one Zubababa or Gagaga monster from your hand. And if you control a Go or Dodo monster, besides glove, you can special summon it from the field, but banish it when it leaves the field. If I wouldn't say it's entirely necessary to run this, but it also does have an extension effect, so I don't mind running it as a one-of. And again, I like having it just as a means to send off of Dodo Warrior without risking my Onomat, because this card is busted, and I'd rather not have them banish one, if not both of my copies. Following that up, we do have the Gagaga Gambara Knight. Gagaga essentially asks you to reveal a Gagaga monster in your extra deck. and you get to special summon it from your hand. Then you can apply one of two effects. It allows you to special summon one Gagaga monster from your hand. What you're typically special summoning off of its effect is Utopic Onomatopoeia. Just so you don't have to risk your normal summon on it. Or the second effect is that it can change the battle position of one monster on the field. Since it basically helps with stuff like Baguska, or cards that have been flipped over by like a Book of Moon, a Book of Eclipse, is it Cookie Yummy? Yeah, Cookie Yummy. Cookie Yummy Way is also like a book as well. And I'll show you a bit later some replays where that works. Basically, what these cards do is help you to play through Nibiru, because it gives you another special summon, and it allows you to hold your extension just in case they do nib you. The way that the deck works now is that you actually are going to be setting up a really, really, really early Draco future to play and stop nib. If nib lands, it's not the worst thing in the world, but typically, yeah, you're usually getting this, I think it's 7 summons, but you're not committing any big summons prior to its use, so that works super well. There's Zubababa Knight. Zubababa Knight, if it's normal or special summon, it allows you to add one Zubaba monster from your deck to your hand, and then Zubaba Knight's level turns to that added monster's level. And it allows you to also destroy one level 4 defense position monster your opponent controls. The second effect really doesn't come up in my experience. It's usually the first one. And that brings us to Zubaba Bancho Gagaga Coat, which is the target that you're going to use for this effect. If you control one Zubaba monster or Gaga monster besides Coat, you can special summon it from your hand. Allows you to target one Go-Go or one Dodo monster in your graveyard and special summon it, and it Xyz locks you. And this one, you can search a Gaga monster. This won't be super prevalent because the only Gaga monster you really run outside of the ones that already keep the name is the Knight, and the Knight is what you're typically using to summon this, which then summons this in a normal play. And then you run the one Ascended Sage. If you control no monsters, or if you control no cards, you can special summon it from your hand for free. If it's used as an Xyz material, you can add one rank up magic normal spells from your deck to your hand. This card is mandatory to get into your Dragonar plays and to get into your full board. It's not the worst thing to draw, but you ideally don't want to draw it. Then I do the 3 Onomatopoeia. Basically, you send one card from your hand to your graveyard, and then you can choose to add one of any of the 4. You can add up to 2 of one of the 4 cards. So you can add one Zubababa and one Gagaga, or one Zubababa and one Gogogo, or one Zubababa and one Dododo. You can't add multiples of the same name. But yeah, basically think of it as True Light for the deck. There's Onomat Pickup. Onomat Pickup allows you to add one Onomat card from your deck to your hand. And you can also target one of your Onomatopoeia monsters, and all monsters become the same level as that card, which does come up in some situations, such as if, say, you summoned the Dododo Warrior after using its effect, it actually becomes a level 6. You can then convert it to a level 4 to make certain plays. I should have a replay where someone gives me Contact C, and Contact C says that you can only special summon monsters, but you have to use that as a material for that monster summon. It's a level 6. I basically just used like Onomata Pickup to convert it to a level 4, and then I just used it for Xyz material, for example. The other Garnet that you run is the Utopic Force. Basically, you target one rank 9 or lower Utopia Xyz monster and special summon one rank 10 or higher. And then if an Xyz monster is special summoned by the effect of a rank 10 or higher Utopia monster or Utopic monster, you can target one of the special summon monsters and attach this card as material, which comes up, basically. It gives you, it's free material, but it's not like that impactful as a secondary effect, just because the cards that you're typically summoning off of that effect don't necessarily need that extra material, but yeah. And then the final card that, in terms of the actual support, is the Unbreakable Xyz Barrier. It's an Omni Negate, essentially. But if you detach 2 monsters, you can detach 2 materials from any of your monsters in the field. You can also pop a card. It does not need to be the card that you actually negate, so you can pop anything. But also, if you banish the card from the graveyard, you can target one Xyz monster you control, and then you can attach one light Utopia or Utopic monster from your graveyard to it. Yeah. And then beyond that, it's just like consistency cards or hand traps. So 3 Fua, 3 Ash, 3 Droll, 3 Ghost Spell, 1 Talent, 1 Reinforcement, 1 Called By, and then 3 Droplet. So that puts you at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. If you want to count this as non-engine. So yeah, 17 non-engine in a 40 card deck. We love to see it. That is basically more non-engine than most anime decks usually can run. And it is one of the big saving graces. Yeah, so you back up a full board with a bunch of hand traps, or non-engine. The reason that you do have to run the Ash and the Called By is, as I'll explain later, the deck is pretty bad into Charmies, specifically Fua and Perulia. Not so much Meows, but it does come up in certain situations. But yeah, so the deck really only runs 1, 2, yeah, like 3 Garnets. And those are just like, I would say those are negligible. I don't want to say negligible, but they're easy to work around, per se. In terms of the extra deck, we'll just start from left to right. Okay, so Gagaga Girl is one of the new support cards. Basically, you can attach one of the material, add 1 Gagaga, 1 Onomat, or an Xyz card from your deck to your hand. And if she's used as an Xyz material for something, which is typically Draco Future, Draco Future can make a second attack during the battle phase, during each battle phase, during the turn, which does come up. I think it's very good. It's usually it is usually the first monster that you're going into. Unfortunately, she is one of the few dark monsters that you run in a primarily light deck. So because you have to run her. You can't run Dominus Purge. But I think the effect, the fact you run so much non-engine that Purge doesn't really matter too much. If I could run Purge, I would probably drop the Droplet or something. It doesn't matter. Following that up, there is Gagaga Cowboy. Gagaga Cowboy, if you detach one Xyz material from this card, if it's in attack position, it gains 1,000 attack. And the opponent monsters lose 2,000 500 attack. It depends. It just inflicts 800 damage. The main purpose of this card is very similar to how King Dempsey or Nyarla worked for Lunalight. It's essentially just to use to detach without committing any of your bigger monsters, specifically the Sage. So basically what you do is you do Gaga Girl combo, set up a Gaga Cowboy, and then you make and use those two to make your Draco Future before committing to any more plays. It's, yeah, kind of self-explanatory in that sense. Utopic Sage. You detach 2 materials from the card. It special summons a ZW or a ZS monster from the deck, and it gives destruction protection by battle or card effect. You banish it from your graveyard, which also comes up. This is mainly used to access Sage. You used to use it to you could use it to access Zexal weapons, but we don't run Zexal weapons anymore. Then you run you have to run the mandatory Utopia and Utopia Ray. These essentially serve as the means to search your Utopic force using Sage. It also allows you to stack them to then use the Utopia force to summon Dragonar. Dragonar, basically, long story short, it cheats out any number monster by detaching 2 materials. Since you will have 4 materials under it, it cheats out 2 specific monsters, and those can be anything. It just needs to be specifically a number monster. Then you go, these two kind of like going hand in hand. Utopic Future, you stack Draco Future on top of it. Utopic Future is one of the boss monsters of the deck. It's a monster negate. It can snatch steal if the monster is on the field when it's activated. When it activates the negate on the field. Yeah, cool card, very, very fun. But yeah, it's typically something you end on. The new Future Zexal, which is the cover boy of the set. Basically, he gains attack and defense equal to the combined ranks of all Xyz monsters you control and in your opponent's graveyard times 500. So it's really good into Xyz versus Xyz matchups or decks that summon a lot of Xyz monsters. Your opponent can't target monsters for attacks except for this one, and it also cannot target and your opponent can target other cards on the field with card effects. Also, it is a steal, basically. I do have a big issue with this in tandem with Draco Future, but I'll get into that later. You typically pair that with Starliege Photon Blast Dragon. So basically, with the excess materials that you make, not only does this give your monsters targeting protection, it also gives them destruction protection. So since Zexal pretty much has all card effects focus in on him specifically, he himself is not protected, so you use Starliege to protect him. So they basically form a loop to protect each other. So Zexal protects everyone else. Starliege protects Future Zexal. And yeah, you could also summon Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon if you wanted to. Gaga Magician basically helps. It summons a Xyz monster from the graveyard. And if you use it for an Xyz material, you can detach, target one of your Xyz monsters, make its attack 5,000 for the turn, and negate its effects. Doesn't come up too much in this deck, but it still is pretty good. Utopia Rising. If this card is special summoned, you can target one Xyz monster in your graveyard, except itself, and special summon in defense position, and then you detach all the materials on the card and add it to the card that you summoned. If you summon during at any point during the turn, except the damage step, you can special summon it from the graveyard. The good thing and the most notable thing is that this effect is on special summon. It is not on Xyz summon. So, as I will show in a replay, this card actually can come up pretty clutch. So yeah. And then the final cards are Bagooska. Bagooska is essentially your Droll / Fua answer. This deck can't play through either of those cards. You can attempt to play through Fua, but this deck cannot play through Droll whatsoever. You fold to Droll. So you try to buy a turn. It's not the best option, but it is a doable option. Also, the cool thing about Xyz Barrier, is you only need to control an Xyz monster, versus Numbers Protection, you need to control a number Xyz monster. So Xyz Barrier is not only more searchable, or it's easier to search, but it's less taxing. If they ban Bagooska, not only are you screwed, but I'm screwed. Because I need that for Lunalight. But I digress. Oh yeah, if you're talking about like MD, I feel bad for you. And then the final two cards, Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon is just, I use it for popping cards, popping spells and traps. And it's a quick effect, so it helps synergize with any of your monsters. So you not only are you breaking board, but you're also gaining advantage while doing it. And then finally, you do have Titanic Galaxy, which is one of the main, if not the main, monster that you are summoning off of Dragonar's effect. My side is kind of like pretty basic. I haven't really messed with it too much. The most important thing to sort of note is that I run Salesman. The reason I run Salesman is that I sided in going first or second, activate it, call Droll, and go from there. Because again, this deck folds to Droll. You cannot play under it. This card comes up pretty clutch in that regard. Unfortunately, if you wanted to stop Fua, it doesn't do that because they could just shotgun Fua. But other than that, that's really it. I did make a list of texts that we can go over that might be useful or be considered. So I'll start with Gagaga Utopic Tactics, which is one of the support cards that the deck did get. To make it very simple, it not only stops targeting it gives you targeting protection for any attribute that is light, and destruction protection by card effect. But the important thing to sort of note with the card is that you can declare a level from 1 to 12 and target two face-up monsters you control, including a Gagaga monster, and they become that level. So it level modulates, which allows you access to any monster, any generic Xyz monster in the game that requires two things, which helps with synergizing with something like Gagaga Magician, which I'll show in a combo later. There's Exchange Tactics, which you draw a card for every time you summon a Utopia monster. This is definitely win more. Do not run this card. And then I do have a bunch of examples of cards that you can either summon off of Dragonar, or you can summon off of the effect of Utopic Tactics. It's not limited to these cards, but they are definitely options. Veruja's is an Omni Negate / Pop. Monster Negate off of Photon Lord. This is a targeting. It changes the name to Unknown, and it negates the effects of any card that is named Unknown. I don't personally like this card at all. I would rather just go into Photon Lord. Trap Tricks of Felicia. Tactics of Fleecia is specifically used as a tech for Droll. You summon it and you run Gravedigger's Trap Hole, and you proceed to combo from there. The reason I don't like Trap Tricks Rafflesia is, one, it's reliant on a Garnet. Two, it is basically have to anticipate the fact that your opponent is running Droll and drew the Droll. You can't remove the materials otherwise. So if they don't have Droll, you already need to have combo. If they do have Droll, it works, but Rafflesia is it's dog. I would never run that card. Zeus is standard in any sort of Xyz deck, but it is funny that you can make Zeus off of Utopic Tactics. You can hard make it. That's kind of funny. Utopia Ray is a card that you can summon off of Dragonar, and you would typically use its effect to equip it with any of the sort of like Zexal weapons. I just chose like some common ones that you use, but you can attach any of them. But yeah, the Zexal weapons work very similarly to Cross, is that you can activate them at any time, and it's not like something that you chain to an effect. So that's really nice. It also helps with, like, for example, like Twin Saber. If, say, they do like summon Typhon and they use Typhon effect on to try and spin any of your monsters, you can just negate it with Twin Saber because it's off of the effect of being attached to a monster. So that's nice. Werewolf is a pretty good card. You banish one. Yeah. If you've ever seen any sort of VSK9, you kind of know what it does. This does like banishing from like hand. Works very similarly to Ouroboros. Eclipse Twins gives you extra pushes. It can be used to make Draco Future. It has a lot of like use cases. Xanathon stops your opponent from special summoning from the graveyard. It also stops graveyard effects, so it's kind of like Dweller, but has a little extra sauce to it. Alimbertian, again, is for the Mathmech engine. Giant Hand, it works similarly to Demolition. Castel is specifically used if you slot in Featherstorm and Thrust to essentially use Featherstorm's like monster negate effect. You can also hard make Dingirsu, which is says send you can send any card from the field to the graveyard. Asophiel, you can spin a card back to the hand, or spin it back to the hand. Gallant Granite is for getting Nibiru. Redoer can banish itself. It detaches for effect. You can, just generally good card. Want to add to those. Malevincent banishes a card that your opponent controls. Utopic Ray Lancer, you can give up a spell trap and stack it on top of a card. It gives you extra push / OTK power. Nash Knight works similarly to any of the sort of Honor Arc cards. You attach 2 materials, you attach a number Xyz monster to it, and then you can take one of your opponent's monsters and stack it on to it as a material. Ripper is just better Rafflesia. Vimana is an Omni Negate. Lancer, you can do a small like armored Xyz package, and this works similarly to Nash Knight, but has a little bit more setup to it. But it has easier setup to it. Durandal you can do off of tactics as well. I've done it mainly as a cheap way to hand rip my opponents by chaining Durandal effect, then chain Droll, and they lose the game. Big Eye's a monster seal, and then there's also this card, Heroic Champion Magnum Excalibur, which is one of the other new cards introduced in the Duelist Advance. This card gives you recovery, which is like the main reason you would run it. But since Onomat Kage exists, this card sucks, and I would never run it. I think that is it in terms of like pure Utopia tech. And with that said, I can show off some combos. Do you guys have any questions before I go any further? All right, cool. No questions. All right. So the best thing about this deck, again, when comparing it to its counterparts in terms of like the anime Protagonist, is that it's much more consistent than any of those decks. Period, bar none. Just because Goblinberg and Dodo Warrior are easily like the best, like some of the best main deck monsters that any Protagonist has ever gotten. And I'll show you that the fact that you can combo with every single one of them with minimal effort. It's a So you see that I detached the Goblinberg to then not only do I get to search off of the Gagaga effect, but I also get to search off the fact that I detached it for its effect. So, which will be a theme through all of these specific combos. Basically, once you get to Gagaga Girl and Gagaga Cowboy, if they don't nib you after you summon this, then basically they can't move. They cannot progress any further. You'll have your nib installation right there. So that is your end board off of 1.5 card combo. You end on the Draco Future, you end on the Hope Harbinger, you end on the new Future Zexal, and you end on the Star Liege Photon Blast Dragon. So you have protection for all of your cards on the field from targeting, from destruction. You have the monster negate, the spell effect negate, and then technically this is a monster negate and steal, and this is a just steal in general. And then depending on what you need, you can essentially set up your play for turn 3. Not only using just any special summons off like the Goblin River, for example, but Onomat can recycle anything if you need to. I think it's a pretty good end board. Or I would say it's a good end board. There is an issue in the fact that Future Zexal and Draco Future don't synergize the best. And what I mean by that is, say you use Draco Future's negate and steal to steal one of their cards, you have to then find a way to remove that monster to then get the advantage off of Future Zexal steal. Future Zexal should have just been what Machine X in DDD is. It should have sucked it up as a material rather than just stealing it. So, more times than not, the best use of Draco Future is just negating a graveyard effect or a hand effect, and then using this for any steal effect. So the way that the combos work is that you can very quickly flood your board and not get the most advantage off of doing that. But I think generally 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say they're absolutely necessary for you to end on. And since you can't end on this without this, that means you'll always have just one space left. So it does come up to sort of like sequencing and a lot of like matchup knowledge, knowing like what you can steal, what you actually absolutely have to negate with the Draco Future. In certain hands, obviously, you'll also have the counter trap. The counter trap helps with popping sort of the card that you steal. But in cases that you don't get there, it can be a little tough to sort of figure that out. But that said, there's not going to be that much difference in terms of the combos themselves, just because the deck is pretty linear in how it operates. How the combos flow looks the same every single time, which is very good for beginners. It gives them a very easy deck to access if they're new to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or new to sort of XZ summoning, that sort of deal. Yeah. So same end board with Dodo Warrior. Nothing changed. You just slightly sequence your plays and your searches differently, but otherwise, that's your standard. And then the final one is that it is not the best starter. In terms of like order of best to worst, it's Dodo Warrior, then Goblinberg, and then technically Zubababa Knight and Utopic Onomatopoeia can be starters. Utopic Onomatopoeia is reliant on you having another name already in hand. And Zubababa Knight is reliant on you having Coat or anything like that in the deck. It doesn't get its level modulation without you being able to search the card. But it still can be combo, which I will show now. So yeah, it's slightly weaker because you don't end on the Star Liege, but at the very least you do get the benefit off of being able to use both of these effects very willingly. But yeah, I think that those are like pretty simple ones. And then if you want to end on full board, you would need to essentially have either Dododo Warrior or Goblinberg plus pickup. And this is, or Onomat Pyra works too. Oh, this is not full board, but it's okay. It's not full board, but it's as ideal as you can get off of that start. So you do get the counter trap, which is really nice to have because as you could see through all the 1 card or 1.5 card combos that I did, you don't end on anything actually. You don't end on any layered disruption, which is another bad thing about this deck. Everything is mainly like monster based, which isn't the best. No graveyard, no back row. Besides the counter trap if you either draw it or search it. And then this is a combo. In full transparency, this is Acti's combo. Mainly because they decided to play Gagaga Magician, the OG main deck monster, and it essentially allows you to end on a slightly stronger board with the use of pickup and Gagaga Magician. I will say personally, I don't really rate this combo that highly. As you'll see, but it is a cool combo, so I will show it. So with the addition of the Gagaga Magician and using the pickup, you are allowed to end on something like Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, for example. So the synergy between that Onomat pickup and Gagaga Magician, again, and same with like tactics, it allows you access to a lot of the generic Xyz monsters in the pool, which gives you a lot of room to sort of experiment and figure out like specific end boards that you want to play around with or specific text that you want to use. So I think there's a lot of like customization in that regard, and it makes it pretty fresh for people, as more and more generic Xyz monsters are released, um, you basically can end on something like this where I think it's pretty good. Again, the big issue here is you 100% have no space to do the steal, so this is a sort of dead card, and this you can only use for like negating the sorts of things, but it is a fun and doable thing. I'm gonna go slightly back into the deck list to talk about, unfortunately, Onomat Ryzeal, which I believe personally is the most competitive way that you play this deck. The reason being, if you look at the sort of end boards that I was ending on, they don't have as much layers per se as you would like out of like an end board. And secondly, for the amount of monsters that you're summoning, you're really not ending on a lot. You're ending on a spell effect negate, a monster negate / steal, a steal, and targeting protection from the Star Leech. It's not really the best. I think that's like pretty fair for a combo deck, because like if we look at the other, again, animate protag decks, hero ends on minimum Dark Law, DPE, which is a pop in itself, and it lowers attack, Shiniest Wingman through favorite context, so that's layered, again, layered disruption, but it's much more reliably accessed through its combo than the Xyz barrier is accessed through the Utopia combo, because sometimes you do have to actually go for the pickup, or sometimes you do have to go for the Pyra over the counter trap. If your hand is cracked, then you can just search the Xyz barrier and you'll be fine. But again, it depends. And then, so yeah, it's Dark Law, DPE, favorite contact setup. Post Mass Hero support, they can also end on the Contrast Hero Chaos, which is a negate in itself. And it can be used to stop stuff like Dark Ruler No More, for example. And then something like Synchron. Synchron is like Hand Rip for 2, Crystal Wing, Dispotter sorts of deal, through the use of your hand ripping, through the use of Psyframe Lord Omega. And they can, very similarly to how Utopia can essentially take advantage of any generic Xyz monster, Synchron can do the same thing, but with synchros. So you can end on like a Chen Ying, a Gen X Arms 0, for example. The thing that Utopia has over those decks is, again, it's much more higher consistency, and it's much more innate ability to run non-engine. Hero runs way too many engine requirements to run a ton of non-engine. It's not getting any close to 17 unless you're running like a 60 pile. Synchron decks these days, you basically are running a 60 pile regardless. Just because there's too many things you want to hide in that deck. And a lot of the generic synchro monsters, like the Barones, the Savages, stuff like that, are banned. So it does have to go through other means to sort of play. But basically the benefit of Onomat Ryzeal prior to the banning of stuff like Dimensional Barrier, stuff like Protos, is that the Onomat cards supplemented all of the Ryzeal cards, and also it has stuff like Cross, stuff like Plasma Hole. They bridge to one another pretty well. The Xyz lock and the rank 4 lock don't really matter because all you're really summoning are those types of cards. And also, prior to its ban, you could also summon Ouroboros and then hand rip twice off of just Ouroboros, which I will show using a combo that was done by Alex Bergeron at Anaheim using just Dodo Warrior. I forgot why I added Gambara. But yeah, all right. So, in the duel that I basically took the replay from, I just copied basically his entire combo step by step. He actually hard drew the cross, and he had Onomatopoeia in hand, which is why I had Gambara in hand already. But yeah, you end on four mat detonator. He ended on 4-mat detonator, cross, 2-hand rip, Protos, he called Dark in the duel because he was going to Triff on Mitsuyumi, Duo Drive, which lowers the attack, and since he didn't have to search cross off of Star, he also ended on Plasma Hole in his combo, and then he had whatever non-engine he had in his hand. Basically, this is way more busted. Just ending on Detonator is just way more busted, or it's as good or better than anything that Utopic ends on its own. I'm very glad that stuff like Protos and Ouroboros are banned, but I think this is still a stronger version. You can very much adapt this to do other things like Castell, for example. For Featherstorm, you could do Granite plays, etc., etc. Yeah, like this is so good, and the fact is, like, you weren't even committing to any Ryzeal plays. I basically just did that off of one Dodo Warrior. He drew Onomatopoeia to start, so he had Gambara in hand already, and he just full comboed from there. And of course, as you can imagine, Triff lost that duel, and ended up losing because he essentially did the same thing in game 3 as he did in game 1. And then just again, not the replays. Just again, yeah, this is what he ended up running. I think this is very easily adjustable despite the bans, to like Debarian, Protos, and Ouroboros. Yeah, and also it takes advantage of the quality cards like X'd, Ice, and Sword. The only cards that are not ideal to draw in this deck are the Node. Where's Node? Node, Coat. Yeah, I think it's just like really like Node and Coat. Plasma Hole, I guess. But yeah, the fact that X is a starter and a breaker in itself, you can send like Valon, you can send Aggregator, stuff like that. I think is just very good. And the fact that you can do all that, and if depending on your hand, you can side in the Unbreakable Xyz Barrier, and now you add an Omni to protect your Detonator or any of your pieces. Absolutely insane. This deck, Yeah, it's just a much more competitive version of Ryzeal, or not Ryzeal, of Onomat that you could get. But with that said, can go over some replays. If you guys have any questions at all, please let me know. If not, let's see. Okay, this actually happened 3-4 days ago. He has Super Poly. This is game 3 of our series, which is why I have Sales Band in my hand. He's gonna use the Super Poly, and I'm still gonna win the game very, very easily. Alright, so he basically had told me when I called Sales Band that he didn't have Droll, so he just was like combo off. And I knew he was already on Fire King, so I did end up ending on the Tornado Dragon just because I had the pieces to do so. So basically I was like, alright, I have this game in the bag. I'm gonna just summon Hope Harbinger and he's gonna scoop. Because I have so many interruptions and he's not going to be able to play. He shotguns. So he shotguns the Super Poly, getting rid of my Future Zexal and my Draco Future. But this is where his mistake comes in. He leaves Dragonar on the field. So I use Dragonar to summon the Titanic Galaxy, the Hope Harbinger. But much like I said previously, if an Xyz monster is summoned, except during the damage step, Utopia Rising can special summon itself from the graveyard. So Rising resummons himself, and I resummon. I don't really care enough about the Draco Future. I resummon the Future Zexal. So he didn't. In full transparency, he does not read any of my cards. And he thinks he can just run over, crash the Ponix to get advantage, but he realizes that he has to attack the Future Zexal, and he scoops immediately. So basically, get wrecked, kid, is the best way I can put it. And I still have interactions. I do have my spell effect negate. I do have my pop, and then I do have my protection. And I don't know if Bell's like that good into the matchup, but yeah, he gets cooked. And it also happens versus Malice as well. So yeah, same thing happens. Yeah, realizes that this doesn't do anything, and he tries crashing into any of these cards, which realistically doesn't even matter, because even if this card is on the field, even if this card is on the field, not on the field, you can essentially just like switch the target. You can say, yeah, if Zexal is on the field, Harbinger can always change any attack target to him. Not that it would matter in this case. He's trying to get a draw, or he's trying to remove it from the field to get evenly off. And Dragonar has the effect that it can turn any attacking monster to 0. Specifically, when it changes the attack target, you do damage calculation after that, so they can't activate any sorts of effects and stuff like that. If there's a video I have where I did Lunalight Utopia versus Mermail, and he had summoned Chen Ying after like pushing through all my disruptions, and I still had Dragonar in the field. I still had Hope Harbinger. He goes to attack to get rid of one of my to get rid of my Leo Ray. I chain Hope Harbinger, and then I chain Dragonar. Dragonar turns Chen Ying to 0. Hope Harbinger then does damage calculation off of that. Chen Ying can't use its effect to protect itself from destruction, so it gets destroyed, and he loses. He scoops after that. The secret effects of these two, like, there's so much synergy between these two. That's why I really enjoy having these cards over anything sort of else. And again, it's really hard for most people to deal with the fat booty of a future Zexal. I do have... Yes, I do have duels versus Lido on... let's show this one. So this is a replay versus Yummy. I'm going first with a not ideal hand. And he does have 2 forms of hand traps. What I really like about this deck is that if it's not Droll and if it's not a Charmy, you're actually not that impacted by hand traps. Unless they just have a slew of them, which I will show here. Not that these are like the most ideal hand traps to have, but yeah. At the time of me running this, doing this duel, I didn't actually have Photon Blast Dragon in my deck. Yeah, I had Exciton in my deck. Don't run this card, unless you're really down bad. So yeah, I just made a Tornado Dragon in its place. I don't remember what game this was, but yeah. So yeah, if I had instead of the Tornado Dragon, if I had just had Star Leech, I wouldn't even have needed to use Draco Features effect. So this is just more deck building error or than it is anything. But yeah, I think the important thing to know about this deck compared to some other decks is that just because you have so many minimal interruptions on the field, it's not like a lot again. Deck knowledge is important. So making sure you get the most advantage off of these two specifically is important, and then just having the the security blanket that is the additional non-engine that you can run, even if you don't get to the counter trap, even if you waste all these negates, is really nice to have. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I guess I could show some losses. So as you can tell, this is a terrible hand, but yeah. Oh, okay. I thought that actually went more further than that. There's also this one. This is versus DDD post support. And this also does not end well at all. If he did not have the Scale Surveyor in hand, he is just passing. He would have just passed. But the fact he has the Scale Surveyor in hand, which makes Griffin live, and yeah, and the fact that Scale Surveyor, I'm pretty sure can just bounce the thing. I haven't read a DDD card in forever, but this is not even like an ideal board. I'm pretty sure he could have ended on Siegfried as well. But yeah, as good as like this start as these two are on their own, not this one, but as good as these two are, it ain't enough. Yeah, I didn't even try playing that one out. Because Caesar checks this. Caesar checks any sort of special summon, and then this has 4 materials under it, or 3 materials under it, and then Impulse, and then Ash. Nah, was never winning that game. Okay, so yeah, this is me versus Lido on Vanquish Soul, K9, and he gets clapped, basically. as Leto always does, of course. Leto's so goofy, thinking he could pop the future. It's funny. And then he just gets full combos. And oh yeah, I'm still not on Photon Blast Dragon in this duel. So the good thing, and thankfully, this is one of the actual cases where Future Zexal's attack force is useful, because Arc Rebellion can't negate without a Dark Xyz monster under it. He is still forced to attack Future Zexal. And yeah, he clears my board after that. I'm definitely misplayed here, but it's not like the worst. Yeah, and he scoops. Good game, bro. There's probably some other replays I could go over, but I don't really want to spend too much time on all of them. But essentially, there's like a lot of different means to play the deck, or play lines out, which is very nice. Let me close this out, and then let me share my. No, where's my PowerPoint? All right, we're almost at the end. So yeah, I decided just to go over the anime protag decks, which if you're not familiar, Dark Magician, Hero, Synchron, Utopia, Odd Eyes, and Kotalkers. If you had asked me this prior to its support, Utopia was very behind in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh compared to the stuff like Hero and stuff like Synchron, because it relied on 2-3 card combos. So that was one of the worst in the bunch. My personal ranking is probably something like Hero, Synchron, Code Talker, Utopia, Dark Magician, Odd Eyes. Sorry, Entertainer, but also not sorry. But with the support, Utopia has actual 1-card starters that you can also it doesn't hurt as much to get hit on Ash or Purge on Onomata since you can tailor your hand without it. Onomat gives you recursion, and you can run a bunch of non-engine to go secondly, or to supplement your board, whether if you get to full 4 board or you have to do like a half board. So I think now, with everything that we know that's coming, I would probably rank it Hero, Utopia, Synchron, Code Talker, Dark Magician, Odd Eyes. Well, I think Synchron, what it aims to end on, is much better than what Utopia can end on. I think Utopia is just way more consistent, and I think Utopia's ability to run a whole bunch of non-engine and be like a tight 40 is just way more appealing than the sort of like high-end ceiling that Synchron can do. I think what separates Hero, or what separates Utopia from Hero, is that Hero has so many different lines of ways to play through the Vision Hero engine. A Hero Lives, Vion, Furnace, Duskcrow, Fusion Destiny is definitely better than any single 1 card that Utopia has in its deck. I don't think any of the Pro Tag decks touch Hero whatsoever, and that's all saying that Hero still sucks. And in respect, if Hero sucks, then anything sort of under Hero sucks. So, which kind of will get to my pros and cons of Utopia as a deck, which I'll show in a second. But I really, again, like that it trades power for better consistency, more non-engine space, and much more reliable starters that can play around hand traps. Again, the only hand traps it doesn't play around are the Charmies and Droll. Pros and cons. Pros: you have good 1-card starters / extenders. You have ample space to run 15 to 18 non-engine, so you can always tailor the deck to what the format is requesting of you. It's super beginner friendly due to it having like linear combos and the quality of the starters. It can extend through stuff like Dimension Shifter or Shifter-like effects, which is relevant in Genesis format because I think a lot of the decks in that format are sort of contingent on can you play through Shifter. It runs super minimal garnets now. You do not have to run Double or Nothing. That card can leave your deck forever. You don't have to run Zexal weapons at all either. You can end on a pretty good board without them. Onomata now is less detrimental in card advantage loss because the retrains can still fulfill its role if you get into them. Onomata provides the deck recursion. It gives follow-up. It's extension. It's resilient to most hand traps since your main deck monsters provide advantage even if your extra deck monsters are negated because they just need to be detached, and that's it. Future Zexal is a solid boss monster, and it pairs super well with some of the tools that Utopia already has or that Utopia already uses. And then the archetype has tools that allow it access to any generic Xyz monster in the game. Cons. It's weak to Mulcharmies. If they resolve Fool on you, you're ending on Baguska Pass. And that's just the unfortunate part of it all. Yeah, it summons, as you saw through all my combos, I had to Xyz summon a lot, and that's way too many draws to give to your opponent. You have to Ash it, you have to resolve Called By, or just scoop immediately, or go next game. The deck also folds 2 Droll and Lockbird, which wouldn't have mattered had I done this presentation after the hits to Vanquish, before the hits to Vanquish Soul, I should say, because stuff like Vanquish Soul, stuff like Draco Tail, stuff like Yummy, they were a big deterrent for people main decking Droll. But now that Mitsu has been brought back to the forefront, Utopia is very, very weak to Droll. It is the silver bullet, much like White Forest that I explained earlier. You cannot play through Droll. You basically have to already have everything in hand, and that's just a big ask for most decks. The deck doesn't have any flexibility in its extra deck due to all the primary used cards locking you into Xyz monsters. So if D-Barrier was still legal, D-Barrier is also just a game ender right then and there. You call Xyz, this deck doesn't do anything. Also, this is not specifically like a Utopia thing, but this is just like how the game has progressed. The rank 4 toolbox, which Utopia, much like Lunalight, could abuse. The rank 4 toolbox has suffered throughout the years, which impacts the deck's options. The fact that this deck is so resource intensive for what the deck puts out, the amount of things that you're doing, and for ending on what is like weaker than most other decks, like again, if I compare it to the decks that I personally do play, which are Lunalight ends on a towers and has actual layered disruption and ends on things to insulate the towers. White Forest can like ends on minimum. You can end on 2 layers of back row disruption. You have ways to play through stuff like Dark Ruler No More, stuff like Droplet, and the board, and just the standard board has way more layers of interruption than Utopia has. So like beyond like the counter trap Omni Negate, this deck is very heavily reliant on what you have on the field and whatever non-engine that you ended up drawing. Future Zexal, again, doesn't work as super well with Draco Future because their effects can clog your end board if you try to use them both for the steal effect, which is why, again, I wished that Future Zexal worked more like Deus Ex Machine X and just took the material took the monster as an Xyz material rather than just using it as a snatch deal. And then finally, the linearity of the combos make it, if your opponent knows what this deck does and what to actually negate, or when to nib, or when to disrupt, it makes it very simple to play out games. There's just too much rigidity in the combo. So they can very easily, if they know how to play against the deck, which is also a pro because most people don't know how to play against the deck, it limits the potential of the end board. And for some people, at least like myself, I don't really love linear decks. I like being able to figure out different lines to get to the same end board or get to crazy end boards. Utopia for me just doesn't have that. The combos just all look the same. Even just like my standard bread and butter combos, it was just like you summon Gagaga Girl, then you summon Cowboy, then you make Draco Future, then you summon Sage, summon Sage, then summon Utopia, make Dragonar, get to Future Zexal, and then on your opponent's turn make Hope Harbinger. Like, that's all fine and dandy if you like the deck, but part of the enjoyment of the decks that I do play is that you always have options and tools to play around depending on different hands. So it always feels like different every game, which for me this deck doesn't really do that. In terms of resources to learn Utopia, the Discord server is probably the best place to start learning the deck in both advanced and Genesis format. The Utopia Master Duel meta channel is another viable option. It's one of the places that you'll actually see Peru sometimes. Unfortunately, there's not really like a Jaden BR or a Dread Guy or a me, I guess, for the deck on YouTube. The access to information is very scarce. Like when I was trying to research the deck myself, outside of like YouTube sources, it's not the easiest because people either just are not interested in this deck and don't play the deck, or the deck doesn't have as much of like a dedicated competitive fan base or active fan base to turn to for in-depth knowledge. Like if you compare it again to its contemporaries, Hero has Jaden BR, it has Omni Reborn, it has Grand Magus, it has multiple Discord servers. Synchron, you can ask Death Echo, you can ask Dueling Book Synchron from OCG for an OCG perspective. You can ask 0703 Wolf, who's like a big proponent for Synchron as well. There's like so many Synchron creators as well. And even like Odd Eyes, like Entertainer is like carrying that deck in terms of like educational sorts of things. And I see more activity in the Odd Eyes Master Duel Meta channel than I see in the Utopia channel. As for gameplay, the best sources that are currently on YouTube are currently like available are honestly the El Exordio Decklist videos and the Dual Evolution videos. Because after the support got released, announced, all that jazz, they did the videos and then they dropped the deck. They just farmed it for content and never did anything beyond it, which again is a big impetus of why I wanted to do this. Final thoughts. This new support has brought the deck to the modern day while addressing most of the issues that the deck has had for forever. But while the tools it has are very good, the deck just doesn't do enough on its own merits to do anything more than be a low-end rogue deck, despite its consistency. Like, if you think about all, like, not even like the meta combo decks, but even like the rogue combo decks do way more or end on way more than Utopia does. So that's why, in my personal opinion, the most competitive way to play Utopia would be through the lens of using it as a supplemental engine in Ryzeal. Just because there's much more layers to Ryzeal than there are to Utopia. And Ryzeal can take advantage of the specific tools that Utopia has access to. But I think what I ultimately, as a greater picture think about the support, is that it shows that Konami, if they really, really want to, can make older anime archetypes viable. Like, this deck is a viable deck to play if you enjoy it, or if you like the theming, if you like Xyz summoning, that sort of deal. And it still is respectful and honors the original ideas that the deck has. It just makes it much more competitive or much more usable. And I say this saying that Hero still gets the most mid of support ever, because it got mid support before Utopia got its support, and it got mid support after it got its support. And then Synchron, which Death Echo will talk about next week, the Synchron support is awful. It's just genuinely awful. So for me, the bar is like, can you give anime decks the support that Utopia got? Like, that level of like consistency, like cutting all the garnets, the bricks, like making some really good one card starters. Like, it cannot be that hard to ask to bring for some decks to that standard. And I feel like they've done that with every deck but the Protag decks. Like Speedroid it's not like great, but it's more viable in terms of like how its support functions. Heraldic, much better. Obviously Lunalight is much better. I don't really love the Dragon Link support, if you want to count that as an anime deck. But the cards do function much better. Yeah, it's just very weird. And even like, again, like Yubel, which released last year, the cards function much better than any of the hero cards that get released nowadays, or any of the Synchron cards that get released nowadays. But yeah, no, I think in my month of yes, Odd Eyes is at the bottom, bro. I'm sorry. I think, yeah, like the fact that they've proven it time and time and time and time again that they can do it, I think is, yeah, like if you can do this for Utopia, you can do this for any fucking deck. All right. Since Rossi is here, I actually, no cap, Rossi. I have not actually read any of the Karibo cards that are like applicable to this deck. I know it's Astral Karibo. Let's see. Wait. Oh, let me share my screen. And you would be you would know this better than me, Rossi, if these cards are actually good. I fucking hate Ubel. You will never catch me liking that deck. Let's see. Okay. Astral Karibo's not that bad. It's actually not that bad. I would still never run this though. He's not that bad. That is actually one of the better Karibos I've actually ever read. I'm not even capping to you. Oh no, that's a Galaxy card. Is that it? Is that the only one that applies to Yuma? No. No, not all the Utopic monsters are, not all the Utopia monsters are, numbers. But I don't think, it should still be usable though. It's definitely more usable than some of these other ones. So actually, if I was to put, where's Astral? If I was to put Astral in this thing, I am slightly, oh, Rainbow Karibo is part of it. Let me see. Where are you, Rainbow Karibo? Oh no, this is ass. Nah. This sucks. No, this goes back to my point of like they made a bunch of battle phase things. I mean, Karibo is a battle phase like thing, like themed deck anyway, but like no, we don't need this. Astral, I would unironically, if you told me I had to play a Karibo card, I would play Astral though. You could do like no Kizzy Cat. No, actually, you could just drop it in there. Drop it in there for the one time. Yep, the boy. Oh, this is not searchable? Oh no. Oh no. That's okay. Oof. It's a 3 of our torment. Fuck. We ballin'. We ballin' then. Let's go. Yeah, that would be the play. You would run 3 of these. Oh, it has a number exceeds. Okay, nah, it's still fine. You just don't use it immediately. I do have this photo. If LT is still here, give me one sec, LT. Where is it? So I put it in the general chat, but I think you can really get away with something like this if you wanted to do Genesis format. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You would just have to sequence if you run Astral Karibo. You just have to sequence your plays differently. So it's really not that bad. Um, so yeah, the reason that you have to run 7th tack in Genesis over Onomatopoeia, which Onomatopoeia is the better card. You rather not I would if it didn't cost so many points to run Onomatopoeia. I think it's like at 30 or something. It's just way too much. And you have to go a little bit through some hoops to end on like your end board. Just because Photon Lord costs money or cost points, and Draco Future I know costs points. Hope Harbinger costs points. So you kind of have to go for like a mid-range sort of end board, backed heavily by Draco Future, Future Zexal, something like the Heraldic card, whose name I forget. Dark Matter, Disruption, Destruction. I don't know what the card's name is. Because the card is bad, and you will never convince me otherwise. Yeah. But yeah, the main draw for this deck is that it's easy. It's, at least in Genesis, it's easy. It's consistent. You have ways to play around the fact that you have less Pyra through 7th tack. You do add the Garnet of the double or nothing, because you have to make Utopia double. So yeah, but that's really it. I think you get away with something like this, with some adjustments. Yeah, Dark Matter Demolition still sucks. Yeah, you will never convince me otherwise. But if does anybody have any questions at all? I can sit down and rag on some Odd Eye some more. Where's Entertainer? Yeah, are you still here, buddy? I'm sorry. One day you'll get your support. The only reason I can safely say that Dark Magician is a better deck than Odd Eyes is because they get support every year. Bro, you've been starving for support since COVID, probably, maybe. I have no idea. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not the best to think about like Rose Dragon support. I think the support is good. It just, for at least for what I personally know about it, it suffers through the same issue that Utopia does, in that all the cards are good. It still just doesn't end on anything. It still just doesn't end on anything. If I'm, it's been a while. If you run the Rose Dragon cards, you have to run you have to either run Runic, an Azamina package, or like, yeah, you run outside engines to make it work, because the end board is what it's a nuke, it's a protected nuke, it's Gen X 0, Crystal Wing, Dawn Dragster, and then the not the field spell, but the new continuous spell is a floodgate per se, because it turns all the monsters on the field to plants. And if you run the Azamina package, you can end on Morian, and you can end on Ilya Silva, which is an Omni negate. But I'm not the best person to ask or talk about like Rose Dragon support. But I think the support is good. It's just it doesn't do enough on its own. But we in MD, can anything be done about Maxi Charmies with Bagooska Band? You better hope you draw the Ash or the Called By or Cross Out, because the answer is no. This deck folds. This deck is folding without Bagooska. No, you're not running Sales Band in a best of one. You're not running Sales Band in a best of one. You are praying that your non-engine carries you. Yeah, I mean you get the extra. Yeah, like most rogue decks took a massive hit with Bagooska, but specifically like Xyz based ones, because you could have just ended on that and been cool. Like hope you could stall, but nah, it's clipped. It is so clipped. But yeah, that's why the best thing about this deck is that you can run a bunch of non-engine. You can hopefully stall. You can hopefully just stall it out. Yeah, you just switch the Fuelos. Yeah, I would switch the Fuelos for two Maxi, change the third one into the second Called By, and then just fix the non-engine for whatever. Yeah. Like if nah, yeah, it's that's why like it is probably the worst ban. I think this deck will actually be worse in Master Duel because of the Bagooska ban. Cause you gotta end on something, dog. And you just have to do too much to end on just you have to do too much to end on this guy. To end on the Draco future. Like, come on, bro. To end on a monster negate? Come on, bro. I think that... Yeah, I don't know if there's any other thing. No, not. Onomat. Oh my gosh, this card is so buns. This is terrible. Oh my god. I've never actually read a lot of these cards because I knew they were going to be bad, but damn, these cards are really bad. Dodo bot? Oh my god. Alright, yeah, trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Don't even bother reading. Oh my, these cards are really bad. Holy, yeah. Just you see this deck list. Just edit it slightly for Master Duel format. You can take out the droplets, add in imperms, add in the maxi, add in your second thing. Beautiful. You'll never have to think about building the deck. If you want to add a Mathmech package, sure. I will flame you if you do, but... because we don't like Mathmech players here. But, if you want to do it, go ahead. Gagaga head. Oh my gosh, this card is buns. And it's getting reprinted. Yeah, no. Nah, these cards are garbage. Oh yeah, and the other thing is that the Gagaga like Xyz monsters are terrible as well. The best one is girl. It's girl, then magician, and then everything else falls into the wayside. Gagaga tag. Yo, you're killing me, Doug. These cards are buns. Gagaga draw. Banish 3 cards to draw 2? What a... Nah. Bro has Raigeki break. Okay. He was a time card. Cowboy for game. Yes, he is a time card and a finisher. But he is still buns. It's high noon, ass boy. Okay, let me see this. Art. I'm gonna just search Archer. I'm not typing that ridiculousness. My God. No, you can't. You can't run. You can't run Dominus Purge because Gagaga Girl is a dark and Gagaga Magician is a dark. Yeah, you can't. You kind of need those cards. You don't really need the Gagaga Magician, but you definitely need the Gagaga Girl. So yeah, Purge is a no-go, unfortunately. But it's not so bad. You can run all these great cards. All this non-engine. It's so beautiful. I guess since we're chilling, I can... Oh no. Oh no. I remember this game. It's not the game 1. The game 2. This is with the... I don't know if you guys are familiar, but with the new Archfiend cards. So he's playing it for Regenesis. What happened in that game 1? Oh, I full comboed him and he scooped. That's why I skipped it. I can show you the game 1 if you want. But game 1 I go first and I full combo him. That's why I wanted to show the game 2. When I tell you, bro, look, you see all this on this board. You see all this on this board right now, right here. This shit don't do anything. This shit, literally, he has one Omni Negate, which is this card right here, and the Birth, which is the flip, but it don't matter. Also, if he flips Birth and just flips the Gagaga Girl, he wins the duel, but he doesn't, and he gets punished for it. So what would have happened after that is that I use Gampara Knight, reflip my Ascended Sage, and he dies anyway. He would have just died anyway because I full combo him to death. So, fun game. Oh no, that... Yeah, very average Archfiend gameplay. This is versus Tenpai. Tenpai players just built different. Am I right, dog? Oh yeah, just as a note, this is when I was running 2 coat. Don't run 2 coat, just run 1 coat. You don't need you don't need the second one. It sucks to draw sometimes because of Zubaba Knight, but you don't ever need the second one. Oh, so I misplayed because I flooded my board. Oh yeah, I forgot. He Gordian slices me. Oh, okay. Yeah, fun game, bro. Good game, bro. Tenpai players are so bad. Yeah, I don't really have that. Oh yeah, this guy's playing freaking going second Dark Lords, and he also loses. So this would have not mattered. And he just loses anyway. He scoops. Oh well, it is what it is. Alright, but that is genuinely all I have. Good sirs and good ladies. Cause I had the counter trap and he still was gonna win that game.